So this next talk is called Escalating Privileges on Common Web Applications. I'll start by introducing myself. I'm a freelance pen tester / security researcher. And apart from pen testing, I've published some tools as well in the voice over IP security area. So Subvicious is a voice over IP scanner. And VoIPEC is an add-on for Canvas for tools for penetration testing voice over IP networks. And also, I've published stuff when it comes to web application security, such as WebWoof, which tries to detect web application firewalls, and ServeJack, which demos some security issues to do with cookies. So let's start by talking what this presentation is about. I decided to focus on just penetration testing when it comes to web application client-side issues, things like cross-site scripting, which we're all, I guess, familiar with. And I decided to talk also about, what our job involves as pen testers and what the clients maybe expect as well. So the idea is, as a pen tester, the idea is that you're meant to find as many security issues as possible sometimes. Another idea is to show the impact of these security issues. So you're supposed to find as many issues as possible, but you're also supposed to show how bad it can be. And I think that finding some traditional web application security issues can be pretty straightforward. As the speaker before me showed, some of these things can be found rather easily through passive means. You're using your browser with some proxy, burp, or something like that. It's going to tell you that crossdomain.xml is very permissive, for example. It's very straightforward. But demonstrating these issues might not be so straightforward in a number of cases. So that's what I'll be talking about here. But demonstrating these issues is kind of important because I think that's what you're getting paid to do. If you just show that you found 5 vulnerabilities, 20, 30, whatever, and you don't show how bad it can be, then your client doesn't really know why you're reporting them, possibly. Depends on the client, of course. It depends on what they are expecting. But in some cases, if you don't demonstrate the actual impact of these vulnerabilities, you might do the same pen test next year, same scope, same thing, and it's very, very common to find the same issues if you don't show, hey, these vulnerabilities are really bad. You should really fix them. However, obviously, as a penetration tester, you don't have much time. It's very likely that some pen tests take just 3 days. I like to give myself 1 week, but that's just me. I hear 3 days quite often, and I think in the 3rd day, you might be getting started if your scope is huge, and then you realize, hey, I don't have time to demonstrate all these security issues that I found. And apart from that, if you're going to be demonstrating these issues, you probably want your code as a penetration tester to work. So perfecting the exploit is obviously part of the task, though it doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but it has to definitely work and not embarrass you while you're doing a presentation in front of your client. So in this presentation, I will publish some payloads to help you out with these demos, basically. Note that I'm not going to be saying anything new. All of this stuff has been published before, and frankly, people have done a much better job than I'm going to do in the next few minutes when it comes to exploitation, and so on. And obviously, the key word here is, since we're talking about client-side security issues when it comes to web applications, a very important keyword is same origin policy. I expect you guys to be very familiar with this. So what we'll be talking about here is not really a bug, not really about the bugs, but about the features. We'll be showing how once you find a way to upload HTML files, a way to inject your JavaScript, or some cross-domain issue, how to exploit it and show something proper. So if your report, under impact over there, shows a pop-up with an alert box explaining cross-site scripting, then I think you're doing something wrong. I don't think it's enough. You should show, if it's PayPal, then you should show that you can transfer money out of that. You should show something interesting, which your client will, prioritize on. You want your client to realize that this particular bug is more important than some maybe usability issues that are going to be fixed, are up in the priority list. Depends on the case, of course. So I think it should look a bit more like this. And I don't mean to create scaremongering. It makes sense to obviously explain the actual impact. But if your cross-site scripting is on a useless website, then why the hell are you testing it anyway? So I'm going to be talking about some basic experiences from pen testing. Weak passwords. So passwords are the #1 security solution and also the #1 security issue in many cases. Because people, when they get to choose their passwords, they choose stuff that they can remember. So they're going to choose stupid passwords like password with a capital P and 1 at the end. It passes some complexity rules, but it really doesn't pass the pen test. So in this case, I found one user on WordPress, on a WordPress site that also happened to have other websites on the same domain name that had this sort of password. And obviously, I thought, OK, cool, game over. But that doesn't mean much sometimes. In this case, it was a user with limited privileges on WordPress. It was an author. And up there, you have the super admins. So when it comes to permissions, in WordPress, you have different types of users. And in my case, it was one of the one of the bottom 3. So it was an author who cannot do much. They can post blog posts, that's fine, but I really didn't want to, piss off my client by posting something embarrassing on their main site, because I want to get paid in the end of the day. So I looked further, and authors in WordPress are allowed to upload files. And if you look at the WordPress help, it doesn't really do this justice. But looking at the source code, of course, you see what types of files are allowed to be uploaded. And HTML files can be uploaded using author permissions by default, and some other file types like SWF, PDF, which could be interesting as well. And so this might be one way to turn your author privileges into admin. So I'm going to be showing a short demo of how to do this. Basically, I'm going to upload an HTML file, which then is, the link is sent to the administrator, and the administrator, once he accesses this, gets to execute some commands which create a new user. So we have the administrator who likes to be logged in all the time because he gets lots of support requests maybe, or for some reason or another. It's just convenient. And on WordPress, there are these 3 users right now. And there's admin, some author who has a weak password, and just yet another user. And then there is the attacker's machine. I'm using VMware in this case for the demo, but it's a separate machine. And the attacker, the pen tester in this case, can log in as some author. And as you can see, he has limited privileges, but he can upload files. So I've prepared some HTML and some JavaScript, new admin.js, which is the interesting part. And then once uploaded to the WordPress site, you can copy the URL. Make sure that it works, of course. I'm using jQuery a lot because it makes code a bit cleaner, and frankly, it makes it easier as well to code. And in this case, the pen tester is really nice and really cozy with the administrator, so he gives him the link to check out. But in reality, it might, this might happen over email, over anything else. And clicking on that, I should have probably put some nice images so that the administrator doesn't check out what's happening. But clicking on that creates the backdoor user, which is an administrator. So we're going to log in from the attacker's web browser, log in as the backdoor admin, and then we could upload some, so show that yeah, we have access. And from here, the attacker can upload a plugin that happens to be named backdoor plugin. You install it, you have a nice interface. And there's no need to be logged in as admin anymore. You just have these PHP scripts that are ending up on the web server, which means that you can obviously run your own PHP code, which in this case it's using pass-through. And in this case, we can just run ls. Okay, so those are obviously. So I think that's a bit more effective than just having an alert pop-up.
So by default, the WordPress admin interface is vulnerable to cross-site request origin. Yeah.
Sorry?
The admin user interface of WordPress is vulnerable to cross-site request origin. Or you was.
No, I'm going to explain that soon.
Okay. So
yeah, no worries. So how did that work? I suppose you're interested in that, of course. And and yeah, the idea is that from that HTML file, which references new admin.js, and which I'm going to show soon, you get to read the new admin page, which actually has a CSRF token that is unique to that function. So you need to actually call the new admin page first read the token, because if you read any other token, it's not going to work, and then submit the form, force the administrator's browser to submit the form through JavaScript, because JavaScript is on the same domain. So it's allowed, it's a feature. And this obviously defeats cross-site request forgery. So that's why we need the JavaScript and more importantly, the HTML file to be on the victim's website. So let's look at the code quickly. jQuery makes it quite easy to. You have the URL, which any pen tester can configure, username, password, and email address. Those are the main things that are required. And once you configure those, you get the admin to click on the HTML, which calls this. And so this is the GET request here. And then we read the nonce and the referrer, which is predictable anyway. And then send a post request, which creates the user. So this is forcing the admin's web browser to do this. Same thing with Joomla and I suppose any other web application out there. Once you have these privileges, you can do these things. And you should, as pen testers, you should, and as clients, you should expect such things to be shown at least in the report. So same thing. You're first reading the page and then posting to find out the CSRF token. Something a bit different. So Abraham before me spoke about cross-domain.xml, and he explained how it might have permissive policies. So in this case, it's very easy to find this issue, and it's quite likely that you find it, especially if your target as pen tester, your target is running a Flash-heavy site. So we're talking about websites that have online gaming sites or stuff like this that is very flashy. And however, demonstrating this issue might not be so straightforward sometimes. So we can do the same thing. We're going to have Flash. In this case, we're going to have Flash do the same things that we did previously. I mean, create a new user, but without any access, without any upload privileges on the victim website. So in this case, we have the admin who's logged in as usual, and we have the attacker who doesn't have any access to the website, but the attacker this time knows that crossdomain.xml has a nice asterisk in there, which is quite useful to the attacker. So the attacker has his own web server, obviously, and he created an HTML page that loads a Flash file that can then receive commands from JavaScript, which makes it quite easy to configure rather than having to have Flash files for each target. So if we send this link to this web server, which is totally different, and the administrator clicks on that, then it starts reading the page. So Flash, through JavaScript, tells Flash to read the page of the victim, and then send a post request with the CSRF token and with the new username and password. And then we can obviously, again, log in as, in this case, backdoor2 and the password. So there's no cross-site scripting. There's no no upload privileges in this case, but it's the same concept. You're showing, that you can gain administrator privileges through something different. So I explained how this works. The code looks something like this. So it's all JavaScript code, which is really easy to configure and really easy to rewrite depending on your needs. And so you have make call, which reads the HTML page for the new admin.php or something like that. And then you have the display response, which actually parses that HTML page and then sends the form with the username and password, creating the new administrator. So till now I only showed how to abuse these sort of issues to create a new administrator, and I think that sometimes that's enough, but it would be great to specifically target your client's applications. So let's say you found a cross-site scripting vulnerability in one application, and on the same domain name, doesn't have to be the same server behind. You might have some load balancing, or you might have some interesting setup. But as long as it's on the same domain name, say you have Squirrel Mail or OWA, Outlook Web Access, then you might be able to create JavaScript code that reads the last 100 emails, 1,000 emails, and forwards them somewhere else, or searches through, creates a new filter and forwards everything found in that filter. And that filter might have, password. Lots of people receive passwords by email, and some of these passwords might give you further access anyway. So that's always interesting. And obviously interesting for discussion is creating something generic, something that works across many different web applications automatically without the attacker having to be awake at that hour where the victim is clicking on the link. That would be great. But I'm going to be showing a demo of cross-site scripting. So in this case, it's not WordPress that has cross-site scripting. I mean, this version actually has a cross-site scripting vulnerability. But on the same server, and this is quite common, on the same server, you might have different applications, but people decided to have /blog with WordPress. And in this case, we have a very simple cross-site scripting vulnerability on a sample web application called SimpleXSS. And obviously, it's just an extra, but you might not want to have script tags in your URL, so that's one way. It's quite lame, but I suppose it works. Again, I'm using Skype, but obviously you could use any other method to communicate with the target. And once the target is logged in, as usual, the administrator. Once he clicks on the link, no users are created. In this case, we take a different approach and backdoor the themes, which so we add at the end of the theme, the WordPress theme, we add some PHP code if it doesn't exist already, so that we don't end up with too many lines. And then through this, the attacker can access the PHP backdoor that he just created. So in this case, we backdoored 404, So we have to trigger that 404.php somehow. And one way to do that is by going to a blog post that doesn't exist yet. And in this case, the parameter was woot. So woot equals ls, and we get our directory listing at the end of the non-existent page. So that's pretty cool, and it's a bit more stealthy than creating an administrator. It depends on the case. As pen tester, you might be required to be more stealthy, or sometimes it's okay to just show up with not lots of new users on the system. So in which cases is this sort of thing needed? Obviously, we covered the first three. So cross-site scripting, Flash cross-domain, and uploads of certain file types, HTML especially. But if you can upload some other file types, then you might also be able to run your code within that domain's privileges. But HTML5 is also interesting because you have something very similar to Flash's crossdomain.xml and other cross-domain methods, of course. And I'd like to discuss this more. Maybe you guys have some more ideas where these sort of payloads could be useful. Originally I thought it would be cool to provide some mitigation and solution because it sounds nice when I'm submitting a presentation to the CFP committee. So I have one slide about solutions and stuff. I think we have a problem fixing these things because they are features and not bugs. So your solution, your web application firewall is probably not gonna fix your upload because that's a feature. You want your authors to upload files. So it's very likely that you won't be able to fix this easily. However, there are different solutions depending on the case. So, for example, if we look at what Gmail does, on Gmail you receive attachments, right? The attachments don't end up, even though Google tried to scrub some of the files, but still the attachments don't end up on mail.google.com because if someone finds a way to bypass these scrubbing and these HTML sanitization methods, then that attachment might be able to read your emails, might be able to, forward your emails and stuff like that. So they host them on a different domain name. So clearly, hosting your blog or your web applications on a different domain name than across different applications has security benefits. Although, I totally understand that the marketing department might not agree. The SEO guys might not agree. So this is obviously from a security point of view. And obviously, when it comes to cross-domain policies, so crossdomain.xml and the equivalent on other technologies, Silverlight and HTML5, then that's relatively easy to solve. You don't use an asterisk, of course. But there's a good reason why they use asterisks, and that's because it's quite a pain in the ass for developers to decide which domains have to read content from their web applications. So with this presentation, I will publish some code, the code that we saw here. There's only these few examples, but it's rather easy to add more. And I hope that you guys will submit your own and contribute. So go forth and test and give me feedback. It's over here. And I think we have some few seconds for questions. Oh, shit.
So we were talking about this already before, about integrating stuff in Beef.
Okay.
When you speak about a generic approach, I'm thinking about like the approach we use to detect internal network resources, having like the image files of like Cisco routers, Netgear routers, right? We can do the same like adding Drupal and this kind of stuff. So like you select your delivery method and then you try to add users blindly, obviously.
Yeah.
Or maybe even detecting if you are in the same domain.
Yeah. At that stage, you don't have to do it blindly as well, because
if you are in the same domain.
I mean, you still have some brute force techniques, of course, but yeah, you have much more access than just cross-site request forgery style. Any more questions? Yeah.
Hi. Really cool stuff.
Thank you.
Well, it's not a question. It's just as you asked for input. I did like 2 years ago a project ex campo. Probably it's in GitHub somewhere. I don't remember. That actually do that. It's a web form where you fill some data, like a URL for image, a URL where you want to submit your details, and it's going to generate JavaScript to use in a payload. It's going to generate like a fake login page. It's going to generate different payloads to do this kind of stuff. So maybe you can have, well, I'm going to copy your email and
so that's your project?
Yeah, I did it like
okay,
2 years ago. You saw it? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, we should discuss some of these ideas. Beer? Yeah.
I've just got a couple of quick announcements just to finish off, really. Thanks, Sandro.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'll watch the